Shocking revelation in Amos 5, the hidden prophecy they refused to teach. Few knew what truly happened that night. Under the dim glow of flickering oil lamps, the air was thick with unease. Whispers tangled with the scent of burning incense, shrouding the people in a veil of mystery. In the land of Israel, where divinity and silence collide, the unthinkable loomed. The prophet Amos, a simple shepherd turned messenger, stood amidst the gathered crowd, his heart racing. Hands trembling, he spoke. "Seek me," the Lord says, "and live." But what life awaited those who sought him? Was it salvation or something else entirely? Jerusalem's stone streets felt ominous that evening. The sky, darkening to a bruised hue, mirrored the fears of a nation on the brink. Amos had witnessed the rising tide of injustice, the smugness of the wealthy, and the cries of the oppressed. What was meant to be a sacred gathering turned into a stage for wild prophecies. The weight of doom clung to every word he uttered, punctuated by a silence so profound, it was almost deafening. Could the people comprehend the truth? He claimed the Lord had spoken, declaring their worship was worthless, their festivities empty. Shock rippled through the crowd. Gasps echoed, was their devotion misguided? Then came the shocking imagery that sent shivers down their spines. I despise your feasts," Amos cried out. He painted vivid scenes of judgment, where darkness would pour out over the land like a flood. Each syllable felt like a hammer striking stone, each pause heavy with dread. The people's hearts raced, a tightness gripped their chests at the unsettling possibility of divine wrath, but amid the turmoil, a flicker of hope shone through the despair. Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. Could they truly change? Was redemption hidden within their reach, or had they gone too far? The crowd was left trembling, caught in a web of conflict between their fears and the glimmer of hope. The intensity of that night lingered like smoke in the air. Would the people heed Amos's warning or dismiss it as mere madness? The answer remained shrouded, waiting for the dawn to reveal its truth. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. As the first rays of dawn unfurled across the land, they revealed the shaken faces of the people who gathered around Amos. The previous night's chilling revelation still echoed in the hearts of many. Fear and uncertainty had tangled with the remnants of devotion they felt towards their rituals, now questioning their very purpose. With the sun's ascent came a fresh breeze, yet it failed to cleanse the unease that clung to the atmosphere like morning mist. Amos stood in the silence, eyes scanning the anxious faces of the crowd. He could sense an internal struggle within the man, urgent yearning for truth battling against the comforting familiarity of their traditions. The rustling of robes and the hushed murmurs filled the air, each soul grappling with the weight of his words. What did it mean to seek the Lord, truly, brothers and sisters? He began anew, voice steady but resonating with earnestness. What do you value more? Are your feasts mere shadows of your devotion? Or are your spirits kindled in genuine pursuit of the Most High? He could see visions flashing before their eyes, fragments of their past worship, the sumptuous food laid on grand tables, the jubilant songs belted out under starry skies, all now imbued with the specter of emptiness. But as he spoke, something unexpected stirred in the crowd. An elder woman, her back bent with age yet her spirit unyielding, stepped forward. "What, then, should we do?" she implored, her voice cracking. "If our worship is meaningless, tell us how to return to the heart of our God." A ripple of agreement washed through the gathered multitude, a communal plea for direction amid their confusion and fear. Amos raised his gaze to the heavens, allowing the weight of the moment to settle around him like a sacred mantle. "Return! Return! Return!" he cried, the emphasis birthing a conviction that echoed off the ancient stones. Show me your love through justice. Care for the widow, protect the orphan, extend your hand to the poor. Each directive felt like a bridging way back to the heart they had strayed from. He paused, feeling the heartbeat of the community, now thrumming with a mixture of hope and apprehension, yet, a disquieting thought began to burgeon within him. Would they truly listen? Would the elite among them, so comfortable in their wealth and power, humble themselves to respond to such a call? As he gazed across the gathering, he discerned familiar faces laden with arrogance, their eyes narrowed in skepticism. Could anything break through their hardened hearts? The merriment and shows of religiosity could mask their truths, but Amos sensed the fracture lines, the cracks where the promises of God bled through, desperate to mend the hearts of the nation. The Lord is not far, he reminded them amiably but firmly. He is a God of mercy, who desires not vengeance, but reconciliation. Amid this fervid exchange, nature itself seemed to respond. Clouds thickened overhead, shadows creeping forward, foretelling a shift. A tremor beneath their feet subtly reminded them of their earthly limitations. The winds began to howl, carrying with them an unspoken message. The gathered souls hushed, sensing that what loomed was not just weather but a sign, a herald of impending transformation. Emboldened, Amos pressed on. You stand at the crossroads, the chance to either embrace change or cling to the old ways. Consider this: what awaiteth those who care not for justice? What judgment rests on the hearts numb to the cries of the needy? His words hung perilously in the air as uncertainty transformed into a silent provocation. As the crowd shifted uncomfortably, many wrestled with unanswered questions spinning through their minds. Could we ever be worthy of reconciliation? Is there still a chance for redemption after such waywardness? The answers to such profound inquiries rested elusively between them and the God they sought to serve. And as the dark clouds gathered above, a new storm brewed, not of wrath but rather the possibility of awakening. Yet even as anticipation crackled like electricity around them, Amos could sense the hesitation. Would their hearts open to the profound mystery of seeking a God who offered grace amidst the storm of judgment? Would they, like many before them, walk away unchanged? The path ahead remained veiled in fog, reflecting the very journey of the people within their own souls. As the murmurs of the crowd ebbed and flowed like the tide, Amos felt the weight of their collective uncertainty pressing upon him. He wondered if they truly grasped the gravity of the moment. They were poised on the edge of revelation, yet overshadowed by the threat of complacency. He turned to address the elder woman who had spoken earlier, her face a tapestry etched with lines of experience, hope, and despair. You seek guidance, dear sister, yet the path is obscured if we do not first pierce through the veils of our hearts. A ripple of curiosity danced through the crowd, ignited by the promise of illumination. What must we reveal? A young man in the forefront asked, his eyes filled with a blend of gnawing doubt and fierce yearning. Each of you bears a secret of fear, a sorrow, or an offense against the very heart of God, Amos replied, his voice carrying an almost tangible weight. It is time to bring these shadows into the light, for only through confession can we hope for healing. He gestured towards an open space before him, inviting the hesitant and entwined souls to lay bare their burdens. As they listened, a silence settled deeply, creating a sacred space between them. The wind howled erratically, as if echoing their internal chaos, yet within that tempest, the faces of humans searching for truth shimmered like beacons in the dark. One by one, the people began to move, pushing through their fears and moving closer to Amos, a humble surge of vulnerability gently breaking the barriers long built by pride and tradition. A father approached first, his hands trembling. I have neglected my children, he confessed, voice quaking with sorrow. I have chosen work over warmth, riches over presence. Another added, I have turned away from my neighbor, who has needed my help. Each declaration became a thread woven into the fabric of communal repentance, creating a tapestry colored with the hues of their collective shame and desire for restoration. As their confessions rose like incense before the heavens, Amos caught sight of the wealthy elite, standing apart, their brows furrowed in disdain, their static forms seemingly immune to the call echoing all around. Among them, a notable figure broke the silence, his voice dripping with skepticism. Is this the path to righteousness, Amos? A spectacle of sorrow? His words were met with disapproving glances and murmurs of dissent from the crowd. But Amos remained undeterred. Righteousness is born from humility, he declared firmly. These tears are not for show, they are the fertile soil that invites God's grace. Are you willing to join this wave of repentance, or will you remain stagnant, imprisoned by your pride? A palpable tension hung in the air, punctuated by the growing storm clouds above, which mirrored the brewing conflict within every heart. Would this hardened elitist be willing to wrestle with his own truths? The gathering seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a response that could either fracture their unity or solidify it. Just as the churning skies threatened to unleash a deluge, the elder woman stepped boldly into the fray, raising her hand to still the murmurs. What if our insistence on having it all has placed a barrier to God's grace? Her voice, frail yet powerful, struck a chord, echoing the struggle of those watching. Amos turned to her and the crowd, reflecting on her words. Indeed, what if our grasping at wealth and power has blinded us to the gifts of the Spirit? Can we exchange our chains for the freedom found in humility? Amidst their contemplation, a sudden clap of thunder resonated through the air, jolting hearts and minds alike. It was a reminder of the power that lingered just out of reach, a divine moment, weighing heavily with the promise of transformation. Deep within, the people floated in uncertainty, their thirst for reconciliation darkened by the shadows of their past choices. The message was clear yet wrapped in mystery. God stood ready to embrace them, but would they take the first step toward healing? How many would falter in the face of introspection, and how many would rise to the occasion in fearless humility, seeking to be the vessels of change amidst the darkness? In that charged silence, as the winds whipped around them, one question lingered in the hearts of all who stood there. When faced with the truth of our own shortcomings, how do we summon the courage to face our hidden selves? As the thunder faded, the tension brimming in the air thickened, heavy with anticipation. The people stood, a mosaic forged by vulnerability and uncertainty, contemplating the reverberations of the elder woman's words. Each heart was a vessel filled with unspoken fears, trepidations, and dreams deferred. Yet in this moment of collective reflection, there stirred an undercurrent, an ancient whisper moving through them, subtle and profound. Amos, sensing the shift, shifted his gaze and stepped deeper into the heart of the assembly. Let us not remain on the fringes of our own truth. It is in our darkest shadows that the light seeks to break forth. His declaration acted as a beacon, beckoning even the most wayward souls to approach. Tell us, prophet, a voice called from the back, laced with intrigue and trepidation. What is this light? How do we reach it? He paused, contemplating their yearning. The light exists in the promise of redemption, he began, imagery swaying with the rhythm of his words. It is not merely for those who have walked the path of virtue, but also for those who have strayed. For God does not desire fragments of perfection, he seeks the entirety of our spirit. That a young woman moved forward, her eyes gleaming with unquenched curiosity. But how do we know it is God we seek and not our own desires cloaked in righteousness? The crowd shifted, their collective breath held, recognizing the raw honesty of her query. Amos replied, a soft smile playing on his lips. It is through the lens of humility that clarity emerges. When our intentions arise from a desire to serve rather than to self-praise, we begin to discern the divine from the deceitful. But beware, for the path of the heart is fraught with the temptations of self-justification. As he spoke, a heavy gust of wind surged around them, a sentiment echoing the tumult of their inner struggles. The wealthy elite stood once more, a wall of skepticism against the tide of their vulnerability. Their leader, still unmoved, scoffed, "And this service you speak of, how does it sustain us? Are we not meant to seek our own fortunes first?" At his words, the congregation's murmurs grew passionate, like flames fanned into a wild dance. "We must eat," exclaimed an elder. "We must survive," echoed another. Amos raised a hand, stilling the rising tide of rebuttals, drawing the people back to the sacred silence that had so suddenly taken root. "Consider, my friends," Amos implored, "the fate of your souls when bound solely to material wealth. In pursuing only what comforts the flesh, are we not forsaking the nourishment of the spirit? There lies a greater reward than what the eye beholds or the hand clutches." The winds howled, as if in agreement, whipping around them in a frenzy that felt both ominous and electric. There, amidst their struggles, something stirred within the crowd, a flicker of understanding. As the souls around him shifted within their garments of fear and pride, they began to wrestle with the bitter truth that lingered, yet amid their flickering spirits, doubt remained a stubborn adversary. But what if our faith leads us to loss? A hesitant woman interjected from the edge, her voice quivering with uncertainty. What if the surrendering of our desires leaves us bereft? I understand your fear, Amos responded gently, his gaze steady. Yet, what holds greater peril, the risk of loss by embracing faith or the certainty of spiritual famine in clinging to the empty promises of this world? Remember, Jesus himself spoke of the harvest. To reap abundantly, one must first sow the seeds of sacrifice. A collective silence followed, a realization taking root. In that moment of quiet, the people began to unearth a deeper question, one that sparked both dread and exhilarating hope. They approached the edge of a truth that was elusive yet unmistakable, a divine mystery hovering just out of reach. As storm clouds brewed overhead, another crack of thunder boomed, vibrating through their bones and causing them to grip their burdens tighter. Would they unearth the desire within to relinquish the fear of sacrifice? Or would they remain tethered to fleeting desires, destined to wander aimlessly through a parched landscape of spiritual desolation? In the throes of introspection, a new question danced among their hearts: what must we lose to discover the fullness of the grace waiting to be revealed? In the heart of the assembly, the air grew heavy with expectancy, and the whispers of the crowd swelled like the advancing tide, cresting with the weight of unasked questions. The shadows of their innermost fears seemed to draw closer, a curtain obscuring the light that Amos spoke of. Just then, from among the throng, a figure emerged, a man cloaked in a modest garment, face shrouded beneath a well-worn hood. He stepped forth with a tremor in his voice, yet his eyes burned like embers kindling truth. Do not mistake the gentle for the meek, he spoke, his clarity piercing through the clouds of uncertainty. There are revelations hidden within these discussions, waiting to be unearthed like buried treasure in the dust of our indifference. Amos turned towards him, recognizing the challenge that radiated from his presence. And what do you seek to reveal, traveler? He asked, the crowd holding its collective breath, straining to grasp the prophetic moment taking shape. In response, the man lifted his gaze, revealing eyes that shimmered with knowledge and a depth of experience that transcended mere words. Your gathering speaks of light and sacrifice, yet the true prophecy lays beneath the surface. It begs the question, what darkness lies within that we so desperately wish to hide from one another? The question hung in the air, a heavy fruit suspended on a vine, ripe and awaiting harvest. The crowd stirred, some leaning towards the stranger, their curiosity ignited. Others, however, recoiled, fear tightening its grip around their hearts. Amos sensed the division and sought to bridge the gap. Speak more of this darkness, he encouraged, for only when we confront our shadows can we hope to move toward the light. With resolute conviction, the man took a step closer, allowing the warmth of faith to envelop his voice. The darkness I speak of dwells not only in our missteps and failures, but it resides in the falsehoods we cling to, the narratives we weave to craft a guise of righteousness whilst our hearts remain discontent. Is it not our hypocrisy that binds us to spiritual famine? A murmur ran through the crowd, nodding heads betraying an acknowledgement of that unsettling truth. Behind the masks worn day by day, reigning pride and concealed shame danced like specters, demanding acknowledgement. Yet, as unsettling as it was, deep in their core reverberated a yearning for connection both with themselves and with the divine. But to face such darkness requires courage, Amos said, drawing from the wisdom of his years. The courage to delve into the unseen, the willingness to strip away the facade, and embrace vulnerability before God and one another. At his words, the question of loss returned, wrapping itself around their thoughts. What if we do not find the strength? One woman whispered, her voice quivering like leaves before a storm. What if we only discover more burdens? True strength, answered the man, is not the absence of fear, but the resolve to walk through it. God does not require perfection, he desires authenticity. He longs for our hearts laid bare, drained of pretense and filled with sincere seeking. In that moment, the congregation wrestled with an internal tempest. Their loyalties were divided between the comfort of familiar lies and the unsettling yet liberating call toward honesty. They felt the weight of their burdens, the struggle against revealing the true inner landscape of their faith, which was both seismic and delicate, and amid the tension that rippled through the assembly, Amos raised an open hand to quell the brewing chaos. To discover the treasure hidden beneath the tumult of our souls, we must first dare to seek it. What lies beyond this door of self-discovery? What awaits should we truly choose to confront the shadows we harbor? As thunder rumbled once more, a heartbeat pulsing in the distance, the winds howled their agreement. The collective weight of their pondering hearts whispered back, what must we embrace in our darkness to step into the light of grace that awaits us? The crowd, thick with a blend of fear and yearning, stood in rapt silence, entirely enveloped by the question thrust into their midst. The man with the hood, his presence growing brighter, took on the weight of the moment, an imperceptible ripple of understanding passing through him as he saw the hearts of many swaying between revelation and resistance that he paused, letting the stillness envelop him like a mantle, and then continued, it is in our fabric of life's very trials that the essence of our truths unfolds. Yet, how often do we shield ourselves from the very lessons our suffering seeks to impart? His voice rang with an ancient authority that seemed to echo through the ages. Amos took a step back and felt the eyes of the assembly pierce through the layers of fabric he had woven around himself. What truth have I kept concealed from my own heart? He mused inwardly, the man's words igniting dormant questions within him. Imagine if we embraced our struggles, the man urged, his voice rising toward passion. What if our darkness could indeed become the cradle of our transformation? The roots of bitterness and sorrow may be intertwined with seeds of grace. Could we possibly discover that our wounds, once acknowledged, become the sacred ground upon which healing unfolds? A flicker of light danced in the depths of several eyes, some filled with hope, others haunted by unyielding pasts. A stout man, his brow furrowed in contemplation, shouted, but how can we be sure that the journey to uncover these truths will not lead us deeper into despair? What guarantee do we have that we will surface on the other side, or even recognize ourselves once we do? The man, steady in his position, looked compassionately at the stout man. This is where faith presents itself, like a gentle offering amid the turbulence. The journey may be painful, but isn't it also the flame that forges us into something greater? The potter does not caution against the breaking of the clay, rather, he embraces that fracturing as the precursor to new forms of beauty. His reminder settled around them like a quiet grace. Hope remained distant for some, yet it shimmered like the first light of dawn for others. We can choose to confront our shadows or remain bound, we cannot escape the reality of our existence, he continued. Have we not witnessed too many who have chosen the latter and then become weary and lost? There is a deeper invitation here, a possibility of unity forged in vulnerability. Amos felt the wellspring of inspiration bubble within him, the truth promising a taste of the sublime. If the pursuit of wisdom were a path, he ventured, it must be traversed with humility, devoid of the illusion that all wounds can be healed without scars. Perhaps in nurturing our wounds, we create space for divine grace to seep, mend, and transform. As these revelations cascaded, a voice from the back questioned, are we prepared to share our pain with one another? What if our burdens are too heavy for someone else to carry? What if we crush the delicate dreams of others seeking solace in our acknowledgement? The man in the cloak turned, his eyes meeting those of the crowd, sparkling with a profound depth. To carry burdens is part of the human condition. Each of you, beloved souls, possesses a unique thread of experience that interlaces with another's narrative. When we, as a community, embrace honesty more fiercely than our fears, we weave a tapestry of strength. Together, in honesty, we bear one another's crosses, not to shatter but to uplift. As a contemplative hush settled, the question of purpose emerged from the depths of each soul. What stories do we carry, a weight, a legacy, a lesson? Are we ready to add our voices to the chorus of communal healing? Amos looked around, sensing a slow yet certain shift in the energy of the crowd. The old narratives began to splinter as new possibilities rippled through the assembly. Each face illuminated by the flicker of hopeful light seemed to search for an anchor in the uncertain journey ahead, yet, within this burgeoning sense of kinship, a profound question loomed, whispering through the silence. What sacrifices must we make to unearth our hidden truths, and will we have the courage to embrace them as the very essence of our liberation? As the echoes of the man's words reverberated in the hearts of the crowd, a palpable tension filled the air. It felt as if a heavy veil had been lifted, revealing not just glimpses of light but also shadows lurking in the corners. Each person wrestled with the weight of their own story, the harshness of life's bitterness, and the tender question of what might lie beyond their fears. Amos stood, still linked to the collective pulse of the gathering. His mind danced between doubt and faith, uncertainty and hope. To speak truthfully, what would that mean for us? He pondered, quietly searching for clarity amid swirling thoughts. The man in the cloak, sensing his internal struggle, stepped closer, as if he could bridge the gap between the pondering mind and the wisdom he sought to impart. Each of you holds a unique key to understanding your own imprisonment. But know this: sometimes, the very truths we yearn for seem far more daunting than the lies we cherish. The first step is to recognize the myth clothed in the familiar. A young woman, standing near Amos, voiced a thought that had been on many minds. What if we are not ready to confront these myths? Could our truths, when uncovered, unsettle the very foundations of our existence? Her voice was tinged with vulnerability, and her hands trembled lightly at her sides. The man nodded knowingly. It is true, my sister. This journey requires courage. But hear this: the act of unveiling is not merely destructive, it can be profoundly reconstructive. A house must sometimes be dismantled to build a dwelling that can withstand storms yet unknown. Musings of past moments floated through Amos's memory, the scenes of family gatherings fraught with unspoken grievances, the shielded wounds of his parents' history, and his own buried frustrations. The interconnectedness of suffering among them began to weave a new narrative in his heart. A whisper traveled through the crowd, a murmur laden with curiosity. What, then, must we do? If truth is this unyielding door we must push through, how do we recognize when we're stepping closer to it? This is where listening becomes sacred, the man replied, his bright presence captivating their attention once more. We must first listen not only to one another but to the stirring within. This listening is a lantern in the night of uncertainty, guiding us toward understanding of ourselves and each other. But we must also learn to listen to the silence between words, for there lies a resonance that speaks to the heart behind the face. The crowd shifted, intrigue rippling through the assembly. Each person seemed drawn deeper into reflection. There was a yearning for truth, balanced against a palpable fear of what that truth might reveal. Amos, embracing the atmosphere of unguarded vulnerability, quietly asked himself, am I truly prepared to hear the echo of my own soul, especially the parts I've long chosen to silence? But as if sensing a new revelation about to unfurl, the man raised his hands gently, urging them to calm. Dear friends, do not let fear grip your hearts. Each of us is called to journey through this wilderness of truth. Yet remember, truth is not a singular light, but a spectrum that dances in various shades, tempered by experience. Amos contemplated these layers, wondering about his own spectrum. What colors had he buried deep within, and at what cost? Yet, amid this fervent exploration of the soul, a stark realization settled over him, a sudden comprehension of how many layers lay unnoticed in each moment. If we have become so entwined in this human struggle, could our fears reveal their own hidden gifts? And if this intersection of truth and vulnerability holds so much potential, what must we relinquish in order to unlock it? The storm of questions lingered in the air, hinting at the journey ahead that lay intertwined with faith, the faith that one day they might collectively rise from the depths of pain, transformed and liberated by an understanding that had, until now, remained elusive. And with this uncharted possibility came a new question, resting heavily upon them all. In seeking this hidden revelation, what truths are we willing to face, and will they lead us toward redemption or unravel the very fabric of our existence? In the heart of the gathering, the air thick with both anticipation and trepidation, the man in the cloak stepped back, his eyes scanning the crowd with a profound intensity. Amos felt a stirring as the words carved deep channels in his spirit, urging him toward an understanding that lay just beyond his grasp. Shadows danced at the periphery of his thoughts, whispering secrets that threatened to resurface. Let us not forget, the man began once more, his voice gentle yet firm, that each truth we unveil carries a weight and responsibility. There are echoes of the past that some would prefer remain asleep, yet these shadows can teach us, if only we allow them the space to breathe. The young woman, emboldened by her earlier inquiry, stepped forward. But how do we summon the courage to walk where the light seems to dim? When our stories intertwine with pain and regret, how can we find the way through? The path to understanding is labyrinthine, the man replied, drawing a deeper breath as if summoning the very essence of wisdom. At its center lies compassion, not just toward one another, but unto yourselves. Each heart here has borne the brunt of expectation, judgment, and fear. To move forward, we must first lay down the burdens we've carried for too long. As he spoke, Amos felt an ache rise within him, longing to release the weight of his own hidden grievances. Every moment of resentment he had nurtured seemed to blossom into a wildflower of potential grace, yet still, he hesitated. What if letting go reveals more chaos than clarity? He pondered silently. The man lifted his gaze to the heavens, his voice resonating through the crowd like a quiet thunder. There exists a sacred paradox in life. To embrace the storm often requires confronting the hidden chambers of the heart. Every truth unearthed leads us not merely to the past but also into the presence of a future we have not yet dared to imagine. To trust the unknown is as vital as knowing the known. A murmur swept through the assembly as members exchanged glances laden with unspoken fears, yet something in the air tinged with both sorrow and hope. Amos felt the flutter of possibility underneath their shared hesitation. What if, in seeking to confront their stories, they did indeed find a remnant of light in the darkness? Suddenly, a voice called out from the edge of the crowd, breaking the spell of contemplative reverie. An elder, weathered by time yet shining with the wisdom of countless seasons, spoke with a deep tremor. But what of those who have hurt us, those whose shadows loom large in our lives? Can we forgive when scars remain so fresh? Forgiveness, the man said, his voice now like an echo of thunder rolling across the mountains, is not the absence of pain but the choice to release its reign over our lives. It is the recognition that your freedom is separate from the chains others may have forged. To forgive is to reclaim the power that was always yours. Amos' heart raced at this revelation. Was forgiveness truly a path to liberation? Could the act of relinquishing the grip of hatred be the missing key to his own healing? The questions weaved through him like a tapestry, threads of hope mingling with threads of uncertainty. As the dialogue sunken deeper, the dawn of a new insight flickered within. Each member of the gathering stood at the edge of their own precipice, confronted by truths and entangled by fears. In their collective yearning, a single thread emerged: the challenge of seeking healing not just for themselves but for others who inhabited their narratives, both past and present. But as they sought solace and understanding, Amos pondered a lingering question that tugged at the edges of his heart. To forgive, what must we first confront within ourselves? The pain, the resentment, the shadows of our own making. And in this confrontation, what unforeseen truths await, that may yet challenge not just who we are, but who we are meant to be? As the murmurs faded, a stillness enveloped the gathering, the weight of the questions hanging heavy in the air, filled with anticipation for what might come next. The man in the cloak, sensing the shift, adjusted his stance, allowing the silence to stretch for just a moment longer before speaking again. Truth has often been treated like an elusive shadow, something to be chased but never quite caught. Yet within this pursuit lies a deeper mystery. There exists a prophecy hidden in the depths of our stories, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to face it. Each of you carries a fragment of this prophecy, sewn into the fabric of your lives. Amos shifted uneasily, his mind racing. Could it be, he pondered, that the events of our lives are woven together to guide us towards something greater? He glanced around at the faces surrounding him, reflecting both intrigue and apprehension, as if they were collectively caught in a web of their unfinished stories. The elder, whose presence seemed to pulse with wisdom, leaned forward, captivated by the notion. What is this prophecy you speak of? How can we unravel its meaning when the past clings so tightly? Ah, the man replied, a glimmer of a smile gracing his lips, the past both burdens and liberates us. Each scar tells a tale, and each tale holds a key. You see, the hidden prophecy whispers of unity with our pasts, urging us to not merely recount our histories but to understand their influence upon our present. Can you sense the threads binding you to each other, to your ancestors, to your future? The air crackled with the electricity of shared comprehension, yet fear lingered just beneath the surface. Amos felt a stirring within, for in the mention of unity lay both an invitation and a challenge. Am I prepared to confront the stories that live within me, the collective sorrows and joys that shape not just my journey but that of my people? Unbeknownst to Amos, the young woman from earlier had been grappling with her own struggle for clarity. She stepped forward again, with a hesitant yet hopeful voice. But how do we begin to untangle these narratives? What if our truths are too painful to bear? Understanding the heart's truth is a sacred endeavor, the man replied, his gaze unyielding yet gentle. It requires community, the willingness to share vulnerabilities as lanterns lighting each other's way through darkness. The act of revealing our truths can be alarming, but in the collective unearthing, we find solace and connection. Remember, each anguish you reveal grants permission for another to embrace their own. Amos felt the tremors of remembrance course through him, the weightiness of his past woven intricately with those present. He had long masked his own struggles, fearing exposure to the very truths that could set him free. To share is to risk hurt, he thought. But could this risk also lead to healing, to a rebirth of sorts? In the charged atmosphere, the man continued, within each burden lies a delicious chance at transformation. Your struggles can instruct you on compassion if you choose to listen. The prophecy speaks not of avoiding loss, but rather embracing it as part of the journey. The sky outside had deepened to twilight, stars beginning to glimmer faintly against the encroaching darkness. A breeze touched the crowd, as if nature itself was urging them to stir and act upon the words spoken, yet as hopeful glimmers emerged, questions swirled about the assembly. What if the revelation leads to conflict rather than companionship? Amos wondered, a tightness forming in his chest. What truths will emerge, and will we be ready to face the reflections cast from one another? The gathering was cloaked in a blend of yearning and uncertainty, and as they navigated the delicate interplay of shadows and light, the unresolved question lingered in Amos' heart: can we confront the prophecy hidden within our stories and emerge unified, or will our fears fracture the very tapestry we seek to mend? As the twilight deepened, an ethereal stillness settled around those gathered, each soul holding within them both the tremor of expectancy and the burden of unanswered questions. They stood as one, woven together by the threads of their stories, a tapestry frayed yet vibrant with the hues of their struggles. Amos, feeling the mantle of his prophetic call heavy upon his shoulders, stepped forward, drawing upon the collective heartbeat of the crowd. Dear friends, he began, his voice rising above the murmurs, through the chords of our narratives, we have danced with despair and hope. The prophecy we seek is not merely an external revelation but an internal awakening, an invitation to embrace the myriad colors of our humanity. From within the crowd, the elder woman who had first spoken lifted her voice, but what of the burdens we carry, those painful truths that seem to fester in the dark? Can they indeed guide us toward light? Her question tumbled through the air, wrapping around the hearts of those present. Amos felt the weight of her words resonate deeply. Ah, dear sister, he replied, a fire igniting in his spirit, in the heart of every wound lies the seed of healing. Our painful truths are not enemies to be feared, but messengers revealing the depths of our existence. They beckon for acknowledgement, and in that acknowledgement lies the pathway to transformation. As the storm clouds overhead swirled like thoughts in tumult, the cloaked man stepped forward once more, drawing the attention of the assembly. Every trial you faced, each sorrow, each joy is a thread woven into the grand design of your lives. Can we not see that the richness of life springs forth from the fertile soil of both triumph and tragedy? Without the shadows, the light cannot shine brighter. With those words, the air grew thick with contemplation. The hearts of many began to shift, murmurs of recognition blossoming amidst the uncertainty. Amos could feel the awakening beginning to stir, a collective lifting of the veils that had long hidden their truths. A young man, emboldened by the gathering's shared echo, stepped forward, his voice steady. But what if our shared truths lead us to conflict? What if revealing our darkness threatens to destroy the very bonds we cherish? Conflict may arise, the man in the cloak acknowledged, but it is within that conflict that growth takes root. To face one another in vulnerability is to ignite the possibility of reconciliation. The hidden prophecy lies not solely in the truths we tell, but in the hearts we open. Unity is forged through shared struggle, not the absence of it. Amos caught glimpses of understanding twinkling in the eyes around him, a promise of connection beginning to emerge from the depths of their fears. So, we must ask ourselves, he urged, are we willing to lay bare our burdens before one another? Are we prepared to engage in the divine dance of honesty that heals rather than harms? The atmosphere shifted as the crowd absorbed the weight of his words. Faces reflected a myriad of emotions, hope entwined with fear, yearning laced with doubt. The elder woman, nodding to the truth of the moment, whispered, I believe we are ready. As the wind picked up, swirling through their midst like a living breath, Amos felt the change coursing through the assembly. The shadows of their pasts might indeed harbor treasures yet unspoken. Let us take this moment, he urged, to speak forth those hidden truths, allowing the light of understanding to shine even upon our darkest corners. For today, we choose awakening over slumber, courage over complacency. One by one, they began to share their fears, their regrets, their burdens. A father spoke of lost time with his children, a widow recounted the grief that had held her captive, a wealthy man confessed his neglect of the poor. Each testimony, raw and unfiltered, peeled back the layers of pretense, illuminating the collective heart of the community. As the stories flowed, a palpable shift began to rec sense of communion through shared pain. The rain began to fall gently, at first a light mist, as if the heavens wept in solidarity. Yet with each confession, the drops transformed into a cleansing rain, carrying away the heaviness of secrets and shame. The cloaked man turned to Amos, his countenance radiant with grace. Look how the heavens respond to the heart's awakening to truth. For in sharing, there is freedom, in vulnerability, there is strength. Amos looked out upon the faces of his people, now glowing with the warmth of newfound understanding, connections woven tighter by the threads of shared experience. Hope surged like spring water through the cracks of despair, each person a radiant vessel reflecting the sacred revelation they were living, a tapestry of humanity interlaced with divine purpose. And as the rain fell, soaking the ground, the air filled with laughter and tears, a beautiful alchemy of release and renewal. The people were transformed, their burdens gentler now, their spirits lifted as they endeavored to heal together. In this moment, Amos declared, his voice strong and sure, we bear witness to the hidden prophecy, that our wounds can become the fabric of our unity, our stories the foundation of our resilience. We emerge not as solitary souls bound by their troubles, but as a collective spirit brimming with light and life, a living testament to the grace that flows when we risk vulnerability in the presence of love. As he spoke, the clouds parted just enough for a radiant beam of sun to pierce through, illuminating the gathering as if heaven itself smiled upon them. The people raised their eyes, some lifting their hands, others clutching their hearts, united in a moment of divine revelation. In that sacred space, it became unmistakably clear the prophecy they had feared to confront bore not the weight of judgment but the promise of redemption. They were not doomed to repeat their pasts, rather, through honesty and unity, they could rewrite their destinies, not just for themselves, but for generations to come. And so, in the swirling dance of shadows and light, they were reborn not just as a congregation, but as a community of seekers, steadfast in faith, illuminated by the powerful revelation that transcendence lies within the heart of collective vulnerability, a truth that echoed through the ages and stirred the spirit of every soul willing to listen. As the gathering slowly dissolved into warm embraces and collaborative laughter, the echoes of Amos's prophetic calls resonated far and wide, a reminder inscribed upon their hearts, in seeking the light, we must first dare to face our shadows together.